Alright, so someone asked me to make a trade system. I made a trade system. This is mine, in case you're wondering. But I didn't, it ended up, I did record it, but it took 2.5 hours to do. And I was not about to upload a 2.5 hour video because people don't watch that many long videos. Because people complain about it on album blocks. But here we go. So, here's how it works. The trade main. Okay, here's the functions. So, it's pretty messy. So we have to get the events, right? So here are the events. If we go to replicated storage, we see all the events here. Good, we got that done. Now we check the validity of the amount. So it prints if the player has that much money, then it'll let them trade by doing if the player money, right? This is just a money trading system, but it's really the same for all concepts. If the gold, if they have the pet, it's really the same. So if player one minus the two number, the amount that they gave, is greater than zero, or if it's greater than zero, then print OK. So we can go. And then we can do cleanup. This is when the UI. This is like when the trade ends. So it'll destroy the UIs. It'll disconnect the trade session, and it will set these two players, the two trading players, to nil or nothing. Now here's the trade manage function. So we get the player one and the player two. We get the two UIs that are in there, and we get the player framework and get their inventories, which is here. So if we notice, we have the starting stats, right? 1,000, 100, whatever. We make the leaderboard. When the player joins, we check the data store, basic data store function, right? This is the update stats function, pretty simple. This checks if there's an inventory. If there's not an inventory, it returns nothing. This is when the joins. So here we check if the player's inventory exists. If it does, we make the leaderboard with that current stats. Otherwise, we go ahead and create new ones and make stats with the default stats here. Okay, now in the leaves, we clean up, save data, blah. So like we just set the async, store the data. Now here's the good stuff. So here we check if this is where we add the items. So we get the amount, we get the if there's not an amount, then it equals 0. If there's no item name, then it was probably called on accident. So in that case, we return and print no value was given because we can't give a value to nothing. If the side now if it by is if it's good, then we get the inventory and we check player inventory, the name. If it exists in the player's inventory, then we add to it. Otherwise, we make it new with the amount, and then we update the stats. Same thing with the remove function. Same thing up here. We get the inventory. We check if the item exists. If it does exist, then we subtract it. If it exists and the amount that we're subtracting is valid, then we subtract it. Otherwise, we make it nil because we can't have negative money, right? Or a negative item. And yeah. And if it doesn't exist, it tells us and it updates stats. That's how the player functions work. Now that we have all that data, we have the player's inventory, we can go ahead and continue. Then we set trading players, player 1 and player 2 to false because they haven't finalized the trade yet. Now this is the on-server event connect function. This is the trade event. This is when they update the amount. So if the amount is equal to the player 1 name, then the UI2, the player 2's amount will be you will be receiving. So essentially what that means is when player 1 gives player 2 money, player's 2 UI will equal the amount that player 1 gave. So if player 1 gives 100 money, the UI on player 2's side will say, hey, player 1 is giving you 100 money. And the other function is if it's equal to the other one, then the UI2 is equal to you are receiving the thing. So player 1 sends player 2, the player 2 says, hey, player 1 is sending you 100. And then player 2 sends, player 1's UI says player 2 is sending player 2 is sending you 100. Now this is the trade change event. This is when someone cancels. If they cancel it, then we go ahead and delete the UI with the cleanup function. Otherwise, if it's accept trading players, that player that accepted is true, and we're making sure if both of them are true, then it ends. So the amount, right? Amount 1 equals check trade event. We invoke the client. This returns the amount. Can finish. This check validity, like I said. If the player has a valid amount of money, then we can trade. And then we're going to print, this is debug. Now, can finish. If can finish equals true, if the amount that was given is valid and you can actually give that amount, and the player, trading players, right? Trading players is true, and this is also true, so both players agree to trade. Then we remove the items. We go to the player framework, remember that remove item function? We remove the money from both players and add the money that the players were giving and clean up. That's how the trade system works. Now, how you may be asking, cool, well, how do you start a trade? It's really simple, it's in here. Don't worry, it's a lot of code, it makes sense. You get the money, the money bindable event. This is just to add money whenever to debug stuff, to check stuff too also. So when we can get the player, we get their inventory, and this creates the inventory. If there's no inventory, then it kicks the player and says server error, please rejoin. This was to test. Then this is how it works. Player chatted connect function. This, whenever the player sends a message, whenever the player sends a message, it essentially starts the trade. Like if it's /trade is the key, then it'll start the trade. And if we go to trade and we go to the initiation function, where's the initiation function? Initiation trade here. So if it finds this message right here, then it makes a local trade equals subtraction message. It'll subtract the player name, and then it'll print ran, and it'll start the trade. Find first child player 1, and it'll start trade. Which start trade function obviously is right here. So it makes the UIs to both players and parents them, and goes to the trade manager, like I mentioned, where that deals with all of the trading stuff. Okay. Now that we're done with that, we can show you how it works and also re-explain it for those who didn't understand what I said. So I'm going to go ahead and do a server test. Keep in mind server tests. Yeah, server test. Let's go. Okay, so if I say /trade player 1, we notice a menu pops up, and we see this. So I'm going to enter an amount. So you are sending 200, right? You are sending 200, you will get 0. Now if we go to the client, other person screen, you notice we see you will receive 200, you will send 0. Now if we go back to that script, right here, it's literally right here. Yo, what did I do? Okay. See, look at that. I didn't save. Oh my gosh. So, I'm pretty sure I deleted that. Ooh, man, whatever. So, if we see I'm player 1, I initiated the trade, and we notice if we go to player 1's client, we see you are sending 200, and that is exactly what we have here. You are sending the amount. And then you also see his UI is now, the player 2's UI is you will receive. That is exactly what is happening here. You will receive the money. Now, if we go on player 2's client, since I deleted it, you notice it works anyway. That's a freaking Christmas miracle. Don't know how that works, but I'm just gonna go with it. Yeah, okay. So now, if we go ahead and accept, and we go to the server, we notice it says false, true, true. By that meaning, it's printing out this right here. This is false. Player 2 has not accepted the trade yet. Player 1, however, has accepted the trade, and it can finish because they check the values right up here. Check validity. Valid, oh my gosh, it checks if it's valid. And we also notice, if we go to server, it also prints out the money subtraction, just like in the function, right? So we see print that. So if it also printed okay because the money is okay, and it returned true. Now, once player 2 accepts, well, right now, I don't know how long I was muted for, but we're just gonna pretend like I wasn't muted. If it can finish, right, and player 2 and player 1 accepted, like I said, right now, player 2 has not accepted, but player 1 has, and they can trade because the money they're giving is valid. Until this happens, they cannot finish the trade. Now, let me finish the trade on player 2. Now we notice, if we look on server, it ran the function, right? It ran the function. It printed true, true, true to all these, so that means we can run. It removed the money from player 1. It printed removed the money. It added money that they were sending to each other, and then it printed out the inventory. So now if we look at the server, it printed out the inventory. Now if I wanted to trade again, I could do this, /trade, player 1. Player 1's going to send 500, 500, not 5,000, 500, and player 2 is going to say, oh, you're so kind, thank you, man. He's going to accept, and now they both have 1,000. Now we can also do this. So let's trade player 1, right? Now, what if you wanted player 1 to give the money back? Well, you can do that. Player 1 accepted. We notice on server, player 2 accepted, but player 1 has not accepted. Even though we clicked it again, it still hasn't accepted because player 1 has to accept, and now we accept it, and he has 1,500 left. Now, if we look here, it says added money, removed, all that stuff. Now, oops. I am going to go back to explaining this. So, the cleanup function, we destroy the UIs for both players. That's why the UI disappears at the end. We simply, right here, we're setting the values to false because that's when the trade players haven't decided what they're trading at. The A is the trade, it's the update event. So when they're adding something, it gets called. The B is the trade event on, this is when the trade change, the status changes. Like, it's literally status. So if the status is cancel, let me show you how that works. Trade player 1. You can't trade yourself. Trade player 2. I'm going to cancel. It cancels for both players if we look. See, player 1 is good, player 2 is good, and player 1 is good. Now, if we go to the else if, accept, we already went through what happens when the player accepts, and start trade function. And that is how you make a trade system. I will be posting this on my inventory. So if you would like to look at this or rewrite it, you can go ahead and do that. I'll actually go ahead and do that now. we're going to go ahead and save to Roblox. Wait for it to load. Save to Roblox. Wait. Dude. Oh, I'm in the server. What am I doing? Let me close the server out. Cancel. So now we can do it. So save to Roblox. It's still not working. Okay. We're going to go ahead and save it to a file. Now we're going to go ahead and... Can I save something individually? No, so nothing works. Nice. Good job, Roblox. Really fixing the problems in your engine. I can't even open Toolbox. I'm honestly not even surprised at this point. Okay, let's try this again. It's still not working. Okay, when Roblox gets their stuff together, I will be publishing this to my inventory. Until then, you won't be able to get it because Roblox is not cooperating and I don't feel like dealing with their crap right now. If you have any questions, just message me on Discord. I tried to make this as short as possible. I know most of you would not want to watch a 2-hour video, because 2-hour videos are pretty bad. It's really not that complicated. Yeah, if you wanted to hear, while I'm talking, I'll go ahead and scroll through the comment if you want to copy it. But it's really not that complicated. It only took me 2 hours because I've never done something like this before. I could probably do it now using meta tables, because I was just trying to get through it the simplest way possible because I know most of you don't know meta tables. And if I did use meta tables, most of you would be confused. However, if I did use meta tables, it would probably work better. But the way I will be using meta tables next time at 1,000 subscribers. I will be making a save plot system, and I will have to use meta tables for that to save the object data because I need to save magical stuff, right? Let me go to here, the player manager. But until I hit 1,000 subscribers and I do get that video out at 1,000 subscribers, I won't be teaching metatables. I do have a metatable video currently, but it's kind of bad. I'll probably be redoing that in a day or two because I'm really busy with school and college. But other than that, I guess once Roblox gets their engine fixed, I will be publishing this to the website. Let me go through this one more time. Really all the stuff you really need to know is this right here, the add function, because it checks if the item exists in the player's inventory, which is a table, by the way, and it adds it. This one does the same thing, but removes it. You can copy this if you want, since Roblox won't let me do that. I'm going to wait a few seconds. Okay, then we're going to go to the trade. We require the player framework to get their inventories. We get the remotes. We have this. We check the validity of the trade. I don't think it's pronounced validity, but I don't care. Valid. Whatever, man. I don't care. Then we have these functions. You can copy this function down. down just a tad. Right there. You know, like I said, we have the trade amount here. We also have the cancel the status update. This right here is the amount update. Like if someone adds an item, this is the status update. So like cancel stuff. This is the start trade function, which is called once they enter this right here, and they get the player that they entered. And yeah, pretty much it. Any questions? Like I said, message me on Discord. See ya.